I'm Megan Albers. Welcome to another Timeless Talk on Lake TV. Today, we go back to February 2021 when Lake TV's Chris Schneider sat down with local historian Bill Mulder to learn about all the early history at the lake. Enjoy this Lake TV Timeless Talk.
So Bill, there's so much to talk about when we talk about history at the lake. A lot of people want to start off talking about the people who were here,
yes.
right? And started off with Indians. You hear about the Osage Indians, right?
Correct.
But and they were the main group of people here.
They were. They had the biggest impact on the area.
Okay. They don't like to be called Osage Indians.
No, they prefer. Their name is Waukesha.
Huh. Okay.
People of the Middle Waters. Sometimes they're
Oh, is that what
called.
that means?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have quite the creation story. It's in a future segment we might even be able to delve into that a little bit because they really lived in this area. I've got some funny stories about their interaction with some white European explorers that went upstream.
Yeah.
And I'm going to dangle that one out there. This was a very famous explorer that went west on a river.
Huh.
But it's not Lewis and Clark.
Who could that? Not Lewis and
It's
Clark.
not Lewis and Clark.
Who could that have been?
We'll get to him.
Okay.
We're going to leave that one dangled.
That's what we call a teaser in the business. Okay, so and so how long were the Washita, is that right? Waukesha Indians here, and when did they start getting pushed out?
They started being pushed out in the 1800s.
Okay.
When you look at Missouri history, you know that we've been under several flags. French, Spanish, back to French, then the United States flag. The first interaction that the Waukesha had with Europeans were the French trappers, the Coureurs de Bois, runner in the woods, that come down out of Canada via the Mississippi River up the Missouri and up the Osage. They were seeking pelts. Beaver was the gold standard. And they found out that the Osage River had one heck of a lot of beaver in it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing they found out was that there was already people here. And the Osage, being a people that understood that there's wealth, started making deals. And they made deals and helped trap and did trade goods and even some cash with the French trappers.
Huh.
Following that, the Spanish come in the area. The Spanish did not understand the Waukesha at all. As a matter of fact, they didn't care for them.
Really?
And the French had actually given the Waukesha guns. The Spanish said, an Indian with a gun is just a bad idea. We don't like that. So there was a lot of push to try to move them off. Well, the Spanish didn't have enough ability to do that. And they were coming up from the south. It goes back to Coronada's time even. Then we go back to the Spanish sold land back to France. France only had it for a very short time, like a year or two, and then sold it to the United States, the Louisiana Purchase.
Right. Yeah.
That threw in a whole different thing. That opened up St. Louis as a city even more, and people coming upstream into the Osage and doing open trading with the Osage. Now, Lewis and Clark do figure into this story.
Yeah.
Especially William Clark. He was a territorial governor of Missouri after the trip, and he liked the Osage, and he did a lot of work with them, and they had very open dealings. And there was even some of the Osage went all the way to Washington, D.C. to speak to the president about some things. But the Osage themselves understood what they had. They lived in the Garden of Eden. And if you look at what we have here still today, as far as flora and fauna, we still live in a Garden of Eden.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
There is no way you can go hungry in the Ozarks. It's impossible. Now, some things that people may eat, and my wife concludes me among one of those weirdos that
You'll
will
eat anything, right?
I have ate, if you don't know what chapelinas are, folks, it's grasshoppers.
Ew.
And I like grasshopper tostados. They're delicious.
Ugh.
They're flavored, but that makes a difference. But we live in an era that we take a different viewpoint of food.
Right.
The Waukesha knew that they had to survive. They knew that they had to figure out what to eat so they wouldn't die. Well, they had a ton of things here, right here in this area, and we don't understand it. We forget it sometimes. There were bison right here in Camden County.
Really?
And we have proof of that. Out of Montreal, there's a little town or a little church out there. It's called Buffalo Prairie Church. excuse me, in the Buffalo Prairie Church area, there are still buffalo wallers, buffalo mounds out there in a couple of fields.
Yeah.
You can find that up at Versailles in the Missouri Department of Conservation's High Prairie. It's a very well preserved prairie with the native grasses, and there's buffalo mounds out there.
Wow.
We had elk in this area.
Yeah.
Elk were all through this. And by the way, elk weren't just a forest animals we think of today. They were actually a prairie loving animal.
Huh.
They like grass more than they like trying to forage the stuff back in the woods. And if you think of a elk as a big cow with a huge set of antlers, it'll help you kind of understand where they go more. Same way with our deer. We have a ton of deer here. Mm-hmm. We used to have, for a time, a lot more animals that disappeared, and now they're back. That being the black bear. Those black bear have decided to come home. We had again, the bison, the elk, we had otters that they would use for skins. And even if they skinned the otter, they wouldn't necessarily use it just for the skin. By golly, that was food.
That was delicious.
It was good.
Yeah.
One of my favorite meats, raccoon.
Really?
Raccoon is delicious, along with muskrat.
Does it taste like chicken?
It tastes like chicken.
Huh. How about that?
Barbecue chicken, because I like doing mine barbecue.
Wow. So, I mean, and you've tried all this.
Yes.
So you know that it is good.
Yes. You know, it's a thought process that we have to change in our own mind.
Yeah.
Acorns are edible. Tons of mushrooms.
Yeah.
Now, if you're such a country boy like me, you know that morel mushroom season is coming up pretty darn quick. And you pair that with some of the fish that swim in our waters here, like walleye.
Oh, man, we're talking a feast here, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Can't get full on fancy. Remember that term.
That was Lake TV's Chris Schneider talking with local historian Bill Mulder about some of the very first people who lived in the lake area. Thanks for watching this Lake TV Timeless Talk from February of 2021.